Hi there. Thank you for downloading, listening to, and watching the Lean Into Artcast. This is a show where a couple of visual storytellers get together and take on various topics that tend to cross one's path when you go off on this endeavor of communicating with images. We think hard about this stuff, so you will too. My name is Jerzy Droz. I'm a cartoonist and teaching artist, and the other host is named...
Hey everyone, I'm Rob Stenzinger, and I'm a user experience designer who happens to make interactive digital things, and I do some coaching and teaching about all that stuff.
Good to see you again, Rob.
Good to see you, Jerzy. And so, somehow we're streaming all over the place today. That's it.
Yeah,
that's
we're
fun.
doing our ongoing tests of trying out different setups and methods. And, you know, I mean, I think recently we did an episode where I was talking about building my own PC based on you building your own PC. So we're on like slightly more robust and stable systems now, hopefully, that can handle all this stuff. But yes, we are streaming as usual into our Discord server where we're paying close attention to any comments and interactions that happen there. The invite link is in the show notes for this episode and every episode. But we're also streaming to Twitch and YouTube right now just to see what that's like. We're always taking on different challenges, which gets us to the topic of this week is that at the time of this recording, Rob, it is early September. What is it? September 3rd, 2020, when this recording is being made, which means we're about a month away from what we playfully call the season of creative challenges. And I thought it might be a good idea, given that, you know, we're a month out, to check in with ourselves and see how are we feeling about it in 2020. We've been participating in these things for a long time now. And I'm sure our relationship has changed with each interaction. And it might be, you know, an interesting thought to not only model this kind of like gut check before taking on something or not, but also to find out how we feel about it. Because like when I thought about it, I realized I don't even know. I'm not sure how I feel about creative challenges this year.
Yeah, every year has its own context, I guess. What kind of things are you going through in your life and various commitments and your capacity. And I mean, the creative challenges tend to imply you have a little bit of extra capacity, or you tend to sort of, or you want to find a way to make space to try this thing, to strive, push yourself a little bit. And yeah, we're on the boundary of hustle culture and all that, right? Where what can you do? Can you do more? Are you leveling up? You know, what level of Super Saiyan do you go to? And yeah, maybe that's one way to engage with this stuff, but it's actually pretty pragmatic too. It's saying like there's whole communities of a bunch of different types engaging in something they love and enjoy for this kind of optional thing to say like, I want to make a challenge of it and see something come of it, connect with people, have some output, and just live through that experience because I want to play something. It's a bit of a game. It's a bit of maybe it's a business practice, but it's also a bit of a product, and the product could be the experience or some kind of creative output that you want to do something else with. And the catalyst of the creative challenge, it can be a pretty darn good tool. It can also go not great, depending on what you're looking for. I have a whole workshop actually on that very topic, by the way, customizing your next creative challenge, to just sort of really unpack and dial in, like make that experience well suited, well met for what you want, right? And yeah, Jerzy just pulled up on the screen some of my workshops. And yeah, customizing your next creative challenge. It's at Skillshare.com. Search for Rob Stenzinger, or you can go to my site, robstenzinger.com, and .html, and you'll see that listing with some easy links where you can get it at Gumroad or at Skillshare. And I just covering those bases. It's worth mentioning the workshop, but like, a lot of times this time of year, actually, for some reason, let me play naive. So you seem like maybe there's some reluctance. Like if this is the creative challenge season, let's get our creative challenge hat and coat on and just go for it, right? This is the time of the year.
And the music indicates
Why
that we're entering into the first section of the show. Yeah, where let's look at how we feel about it, right? Yeah. I thought it might be a good idea first to just reflect on some of the creative challenges we have taken on and how we've approached it before we talk about how we feel about it this year. Because we've approached it in a variety of different ways. Like one is because another creative challenge that happens in October is 24-hour Comics Day, which I still have yet to do. The premise
interesting. I forgot.
Yeah, I've done Mini Comics Day, which is like a 1/3 version of 24-hour Comics Day. But yeah, the premise is, as the name suggests, you try to draw a full comic story, 20-something odd pages in 24 hours straight. And you used it one year as a way to, hey, I wanted to learn this new program called Manga Studio, which became Clip Studio Paint. Nothing like on-the-job training. Let's dive in and do it, right?
Right. Yeah, it's because what happened? That was my third year in a row doing 24-hour comic day, and I succeeded in the first 2 years, and I thought, how do I amp up this challenge? And also I have it's an investment, this creative challenge, so I wanted to get something more out of it, get some kind of progress on a product, but also I wasn't finding time in my normal day-to-day to really get in and learn this new program. And and so that was I didn't finish my comic that year, but I did get a lot of practice with on, like, I think I finished 11 or 12 pages, but it's I certainly got immersed in Manga Studio.
Yeah, I was to say, immersive skill acquisition was the objective for that creative challenge for you, right? It's like, maybe I'll get a comic done, maybe I won't, but either way, I'm going to dive in and really swim in this for a day and see what I walk away with, right?
Okay. I mean, so you've done this a long time as well. So you have had such a pragmatic approach to creative challenges, in my opinion. It's something that should have occurred to me a long time ago, but within the last year or so, I was like, it's product development. That's always what tends to be what Jerzy locks into and makes that part of the success criteria for engaging in a creative challenge. So what kind of
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you always framing it as such a positive thing. I'm never 100% certain whether it is, because I think sometimes I'm kind of being a bit myopic and not enjoying practice as much as I could, because I've always got my eye on, well, I want to have something to ship at the end. Can I hack the game so that I have a finished thing? And one year, this is a few years back, I actually did a 24-page mini comic in over the course of the month. And that became a short story called A Friendly Game, which you can read at boulderandfleet.com. And then another year I did, the following year I did an 8-page mini comic where I chunked out the pages into hour pieces. I figured, okay, well, I can commit an hour a day to Inktober. So let's plot an 8-page story, thumbnail it out, and then figure out how many panels per day would I have to ink from the thumbnails. So I'm going straight from thumbnails, not really doing much penciling in this. How many panels per day would I have to do in order to make the deadline, while also doing, because usually in October I was doing a lot of traveling every year. I forget why. Every year I would always have to bake in okay, there's going to be a week where I can't draw anything. So how do I work around that? Usually it's because CXC is happening around October. I think that was one of the reasons. Anyway, and then was it last year? Yeah, it was, where I created a comics pitch from over the course of 30 days, I want to say from scratch, but it wasn't quite from scratch. I had like a year to think about the story, but like narrowing it down, like creating all the incidental art and writing out the bios and the plot summary and everything. That was what I sort of prescribed over that 30 days. So yes, it was for me, it often is about developing a thing, having an artifact at the end. So they tend to be very intense for me. Fun, but very intense. And as I'm thinking about this year, I want to go to my notes. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. We also have our own creative challenge that we started here on Lean the Torch. Because, like beating myself up all through October just wasn't fun enough. Let's also like go back to the dojo and punch the bag some more with this thing called Art Sound Off, right?
Yeah. So that's Art Sound Off. If you're not familiar, it's about celebrating and sharing and practicing journaling as artists and finding different value from it, like exploring your practice, the experience, the emotions of it, like any aspect that you care to sort of dive into. And the idea of, being that there's multiple layers of benefit to journaling and thinking about your projects and what it's like to go about them. And you can use that to connect deeper and see what builds up on your own and what emerges when you start doing all this journaling. But then if you want, you can share it with the community too, and learn from others can learn from what you're sharing, and you can learn from what others are sharing too. That's inspired by some art journal podcasts that came out a long time ago, now about 10, 11 years ago, right? That you and the folks running Art and Story put out. And anyway,
and more modern interpretations like Jacques' Slow Down microcast on Anchor.fm, which is really a journal microcast, right? But
and it's not like, and there's simultaneous invention going on. People have been doing this kind of thing for ages and ages, and it just and new things pop up where that one was inspiring to me last year, because of it was that whole, you could record a bunch of podcasts and drop them all at once. You could find a narrative among this journal work, and I don't know, never occurred to me. I always looked at it as the day-to-day practice, and you just keep on moving, keep on shipping. But again, so we've been building, so Art Sound Off has really built up to include all kinds of.
And then I went in with my, whether it's a bug or a feature, one year I drafted an audiobook through Art Sound Off, right? I broke down an outline into 30 chapters and checked in every day with another chapter entry, so like, again, always looking for that product I can make.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, me too.
That's really
I need to put that together. I need to edit that thing together. It's almost done, right? It's just so now, before we head into the second half, because I think the second part we're going to talk a lot about like what we want to do with Art Sound Off this year, and I'm excited about to like sort of like, and we haven't talked about it face to face. It was like just a couple texts back and forth, but like, what if we? And I was like, that is exciting. Let's tease it out on the show. Tease it out in the sense of like pulling apart the fibers, or whatever. Not teasing as in like getting people on the edge of their seat. But I want to check in. How are you feeling about Creative Challenge season this year? I need to contextualize my approach to it internally. This isn't for like the audience's benefit. This is for my own benefit. It's like I got to think about, okay, where am I right now in my head and with the work that I'm doing? Do I have the bandwidth for this, either time-wise or even mentally? Like, even if I have some time off, maybe, like right now, I'm in the middle of organizing Cartoon Crossroad Columbus Comics Festival, online comics festival. And there are a lot of us working very, very hard on it. And it's taking up a lot of my, it's like my day job. It's my full-time job right now, understandably. And I'm looking at October going like, I will be very grateful to dig in and draw again, anything. However, maybe, just maybe, it would be good for you, Jerzy, to decompress for that month. Like after October 5th rolls around and the show is completed, maybe you should unplug and, draw, but just draw for your own personal pleasure and not draw for any other product development experimentation. Maybe that'll be good for you, right? I don't know. But like I think like looking at where we are right now and what's been happening this year probably should be part of our math in determining whether or not we want to do it, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, you have this year is like no other. It's in addition to whatever your normal commitments are, there's the pandemic, and there's social unrest and things that I mean, in audiences and communities that we connect with and care a ton about, and it's a little bit it could be well met. It could be like, yeah, I need to get my mind on something else too. I want to not focus on the difficulties right now, and do it in a way that builds me up, right? Okay, good. And that's one of the ideas behind that workshop too, for customizing your creative challenges. There's a way to, I do believe in these things, that they can be a practice that nourishes you, but doing it all by someone else's rules, you could just really put yourself into some negative commitments. And so where are you at for time and emotion and inspiration? What do you feel like doing? What kind of one of the big ideas in that, I can't, not to keep overselling the workshop, but like, does it feel good for you to embrace that kind of like, do you like hard games? Do you like games that are like when you load up a video game, whatever you play, like, do you dial in toward the hardest challenges? And what do you get out of that, and that kind of thing? This is the kind of year where if you like super hard challenges, you might be in the right place and time to see what comes out of you as an artist.
Yeah. True.
But at the same time, there are other ways to engage with your learning and your path, and just not doing it is totally an option. And like, but whatever you end up doing, hopefully it's I am in the camp of intentionality, right? So checking in with yourself, what do you need, and wander toward that. You don't have to go aggressively at it.
You know what? You're reminding me of a conversation I had with Anne about like doing online programming, and I was expressing my concern. I was like, I don't want to cause fatigue. It's like I don't want to inadvertently put so much good stuff on the programming schedule that at CXC that people are just going to like tune in all day and burn themselves out. And Ann said, oh, you mean like how the TV just has stuff happening on it all the time and I have the choice whether or not I turn it on or off or change the channel? Yeah, you mean like that? I was like, okay. Fair enough. It's like, yeah. You can participate and you can shut it off. You get to choose.
Yeah, absolutely. So here you are. Because that's another interesting thing too, is like a side effect of creative challenges and this little pop-up community. If you can opt into so many aspects of it. The committing to the act of putting the thing into the world and keeping that up for however many days you've committed to and stuff like NaNoWriMo, are you getting to that right amount of words per day that you're trying to do to develop your novel? There's so many ideas in my head right now. I have just sort of hit a wall. So
Okay, well, I just want to check in with you. I mean, so if I were to give you my cursory view of what I'm thinking I'm doing right now, I am probably not participating in any of the challenges in a formal way. I am going to be doing some drawing in October because I am craving and I need to do it again. I actually have a project that I want to begin engaging with in October, and part of the spin up to that project will involve me redrawing a past Inktober comic. So one of the comics I shared earlier, I'm gonna completely redo it from scratch, which you know what? I've never done that before. I've never redrawn an old comic, and that's going to be a fun experience as well. But I'm not doing this as part of Inktober or part of Creative Challenge. I'm not holding myself to any kind of schedule. I'm not going to make a spreadsheet this year, but I am going to be attending to that project in my own pace and sharing it as I see fit to share it. So that's what I'm thinking I'm doing right now. We'll see how I feel around September 25th, you know, where like pretty much like that's the point where like CXC is like, it's happening and I can't stop it now. You know, it's like the week before a festival is always like that, like calm before the storm. You've seen me in that state with A2 Cap in the past, Rob, right? It's like, okay, everything's set in motion. Now I can't stop it even if I wanted to, even if I said stop the presses, the show's still happening. If I always undergo like a little bit of a mental shift at that moment where I'm like, oh, okay. We'll see how I feel, right? And I'm going to make a point of checking in on myself on the 25th. But right now, that's what I'm thinking. Before we go to talking about Art Sound Off, taking a break, what are you thinking about this year? How are you feeling about it? And what are you doing anything with it, or what's your plans?
I am playing around with the idea of doing something with it, but I don't have a solid approach other than I have some exercises I can walk myself through to see what what might happen. I think whatever I end up doing, engaging with and consuming stuff in the community, like it, I don't know if I'll do a lot of that this year, because just that adds to the volume of time and effort. So the best I have is I know I'm thinking about it. I don't feel very fired up to add a pile of creative challenges, even though I don't have an event like CXC going on, right? I don't.
You have your own stuff going on, but let's
Yeah.
not. We're not holding up apples to oranges and making comparisons on this stuff. But like we all have, 2020 has been an intense year for a lot of people for a lot of reasons, you know. So I was just giving my own personal context.
But it's a really great example. That's all. So I'm not trying to, stand in the shadow of your example or whatever. But like I don't have essentially like a ship date on like a large time commitment sort of event, right? It's, I've got a portfolio of professional commitments and marketing and gig exploring and product development and tending to all these products that I have out in the world. But like and there's so much interesting work there that I'm not like, maybe I might find a good overlap and I'm open where it's like I could do creative challenge infused product development, maybe, right? But I'm still thinking about it, but I'm not aggressively going toward that either, right? And then the other thing is, well, the one that I'm putting more emphasis and exploring and entertaining the idea of is, well, Art Sound Off, which I know we want to talk about in the next half of the show. Okay. So I don't have a lot as far as the creative challenge thing. I always have the impish interest. That's not gone, right? So part of me is like, you like it. You like this extra creative workout.
Yep.
But maybe this isn't the right year.
Yes.
Or just this isn't the right time of this year.
That's true too, right? There's no reason that we can't do this at different times. Yeah. I feel like, and maybe this is partially colored by the fact that we've participated for so many years. It's like, okay, well, I've had that experience, and while I enjoyed it every time, it's like, I've had it enough times that I don't feel like that novelty is, pulling me in. Like, I'm not feeling any FOMO. I'm not feeling any lack of experience to it. It's like because I can always engage with it, like you said, another time. And maybe that's partially because we've proven to ourselves that we can commit to things like that, of that nature, where it's like a small addition to a day for a discrete amount of time, Anyway. Okay.
Yeah. A little bit of surprise and nuance and unpredictability is an interesting spice. And then having done enough of the challenges and spiced them every darn year, it's less urgent. Like that alone isn't quite enough of a draw this time.
That's a good way of putting it. Yes. It's not burnout. It's a totally different thing, right? Like, it's like, I don't think about it and go like, oh, I'm just so done with that. It would be a lot of fun. Given all the other constraints in my life right now, that is not a spice that I need right now, or that spice is not enough to get me to make the commitment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've got other ways that I want to approach product development, so I'm going to try those now. Cool. Okay, well, let's take a break, and we'll talk about Art Sound Off, because that is something that I do feel a commitment to do, because it's something that we started. So let's look at like how we might approach it in its 7th year now, something like that. Oh my goodness. Okay, we'll come back and talk about that in about a minute and a half. First, we got to thank some people who help make this show possible, and those are the folks who support us on Patreon. Yes. Patreon.com/leanintoart is the website. What is it? It's a way for you to give us a monthly upvote. If you believe in Rob and Jerzy and what we do with this project called Lean Into Art, you can support us for as little as $1 a month. You can also do a one-time contribution at a price of your choosing. Avail yourself of the behind-the-scenes content, and then, punch out at the end of the month. Come back whenever you have that extra discretionary income to help make the show more sustainable. But I want to thank 5 people who have been supporting us on an ongoing basis, and it means a lot to us. First up, Becca Hilburn. Thank you, Becca, for believing in us and what we do. You can find Becca everywhere online at Natto Soup. And India. Thank you, India, for supporting the show. You can find India on Twitter at Old Swifty. And Catherine Sugru. Thank you, Catherine. It means so much to us. You can find Catherine on Twitter at CatSugru, KatSoogroo. And Ashley Knapp, longtime supporter of the show, friend of the show. Thank you so much, Ashley. It means a lot to us. And finally, Brandon Dayton, who you can find on Twitter at Brandon Dayton. You can join them all at leanintoart.com. Well, actually, leanintoart.com/Patreon will get you there too, but also patreon.com/leanintoart, where you'll find all the shows we make, as well as the extra leans, the shows we record only for people who support us on Patreon. Those posts become an open mic thread where you can talk about whatever you want in a safe space with fellow leaners, and it gets you access to the Patreon-only section of the Lean Into Art Discord server, patreon.com/leanintoart. Thanks to everybody who supports us there. It means a lot.
It really does. Thanks so much.
All right. How about I'll get us to the next section of the show with... Oh, that's how Creative Challenge season feels sometimes. Like the Wilhelm scream.
Oh, Wilhelm.
Oh, no Dragon Ball this week. I'm going to try to be a little bit more spontaneous about that and not just roll that out every time. So,
speaking of spice, Art Sound Off, Wilhelm scream. It's interesting. It's you can think of it as we're all in maybe a collective zeitgeist, but then I feel like there's sort of blanketed layers of various cohorts and zeitgeists, right? Where I think at a time for a community, we started our Art Sound Off, and it was this whole really emphatic, focused thing about journaling, and especially the daily journaling, being an artist, making stuff, whatever. But then, of course, year after year, think, well, how could we be more inclusive? How could we evolve this? And how do we dig deeper for ourselves and the people around us? And so I think it sort of evolved where there was different cohorts in a way that engaged with it. And I think about how, what came of that. And so some folks would come back year after year or for a number of years, but there's kind of an arc, and those folks, there's plenty of folks that did this for 1 year, didn't come back, or 2 or 3, but there's not that many that have done it for 7 or 5 or 6 even. So I think about that. So, and I think, and then, you know, applying that to us, it's like, well, what do we think about this for you know, well, for us as individually and collectively, is for this lean into art endeavor, but then what cohort are we trying to encourage and engage with and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. So could you give even a vague sort of summary of a couple of the different cohorts? You mentioned cohorts a couple times, but like just highlighting a couple of that you've noticed. I
have not turned it all the past art sound offs into like raw data and then see what the data tells me. I'm just sort of drawing, you know, informally thinking and sort of chunking my experience up in different years and thinking about how, you know, we've had years that it's been pretty darn visual art focused, people talking about their pens and their tools and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then we've had artists emphasizing the sort of the side gig thing about this, where it's like, I'm pursuing my, you know, I have a job that pays the bills, but then I also am working on these other things, right? And that was, maybe it's broad brush, but in overall, it feels like some years have that kind of, you know, these groupings of different focuses. But then, I don't know, how does that resonate with you? Do you feel like there's been, like, if you had to say there's been these kind of groups of interests that have gone through the art sound off experience?
Yeah, another one that I noticed that was in there was sort of I wouldn't say themed advice, but it had the flavor of themed advice. Here's me reflecting on an experience in the hope that it helps you with what you're going through. Sharing my experience in the sense of like, so not explicitly, this is me doing a reflection for reflection's sake. This is me reflecting in a way that is meant that I'm repackaging it for presentation to the outside world, where that was clearly apparent in there. I think.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Art lesson, like life lesson, art essay type things.
Yes. Essays. Thank you. My gosh, how did that word fall off my plate? Because that was what I used to call the Thunder Punch Daily podcast. But like when I think of like Leonard Angelo in particular, his had a flavor of that a lot of the times. Like, here's an experience that I had. This is something I think about a lot. And here I am presenting it to you. And I'm putting motivation into Leonard's mouth, but this is what I'm inferring from listening to them. But that kind of idea. So yeah, and then there was ones that was more like just journaling and reflection of like, I'm experiencing this journey of exploring my art and trying to find a place for it in the world. So yeah, and last year we did a series of prompts. Like, we were like, I remember us posting a bunch of Instagram posts and social posts, like with like images that were like, okay, here's the prompt for today. Think about this while you're going, which was much more like if you wanted the guided experience, but then we also went off on our own paths with it, right? And last year I did another freaking product development where I like ruminated on Transformers for 30 days for the launch of the 4 Million Years Later podcast. I forgot about that. Goodness.
You're consistent with that. That's like, if you're sitting there and you're like, all right, I need to go run some errands. I need to go run some creative challenge errands. Where are my keys? You're fishing around for your keys. They're always on the product development key fob. You're like, oh, there they are.
Oh my gosh, that is so true. Oh my gosh. And you know, it's like the self-image I have is not of a productive, industrious person. Like I really think of myself as a 12-year-old boy showing up to him going like, hi everybody, please like me. You know, I don't think of myself as like being like, all right, let's dig in and get to work. But yeah.
But that's, I like talking about it, is that, and I feel silly that it took me a while to pick up on that pattern, then just notice that your tendency toward product development, where I'm just like, it feels so thoughtful and pragmatic, and saying that, well, I, as an artist, my time is valuable, right? My business is art. And it's just sort of baked into your reflexive practice for, getting your stuff into the world. So I'm like that's actually a good idea, because I've been fine doing the whole this is hard, woo, and then being done and saying like, well, there's a pile of drawings, shrug, and and that's and with like a smidge more intentionality here and there, where I'm like, oh, I'm going to do character design on this project and that project, and and I'm not going to do it consistently at all, and I'm going to do it this medium and that medium, but hey, I'm in the mix and doing the creative challenge, and something happened. So, yeah, I don't know. So those cohorts maybe they're not as perfectly clean too, as far as years, and almost if this is the seventh generation of art sound off, it's sort, but there's maybe it's more groupings of personae, right? Where this is, folks who show up, and so what do you think about this year, or the stuff we've been texting about?
Yeah, well, I got excited. Well, I got excited about it, because I was like, oh my gosh, I love this idea. The idea of narrowing in, and I guess follow this is building off of something we were kind of walking around in the first part of the show, which was this idea of like, hey, you know what? This is going to be here next year too, and we can do the challenge in our own way at another time. So the urgency isn't as visceral. So when it comes to doing art sound off, it's like, okay, well, do we have to do it the same way, or do we, or whatever we tweak we do, does it have to be a minor tweak to keep the flavor consistent every time, or can we do something that's like a bit more drastic? And part of the theme from the beginning with the project was like, okay, here's our prompts. You don't got to use them. You don't even need to share them. Just participate. And like in your way, find your way to participate. And like that's a very lean into arty way to approach anything. It's like, find your way to do it the way that feels right to you. We're gonna model some ways to do it, but this year you proposed an idea of doing something that was very themed to the point where maybe there's going to be prompts within prompts. You can whittle anything down to like the granular level, but like it's going to have an explicit purpose for an explicit cohort, at least in the way that we engage with it. So with that set up, I'll hand the ball back to you, the conch shell, and say like, okay, now you tell us what we're teasing at.
What if we do art sound off teaching artist edition? So it's really focusing in on the theme of folks who want to practice sharing what they do, how they do it, how they think of it in a way that enables others to engage in the similar craft, this experience of making, storytelling, drawing, coding, anything, painting, animation, music, games, hacking with electronics, crafts, 3D printing, whatever, right? It could be I consume media that follows all these different kinds of paths, and I think there are people who might get excited about practicing doing some kind of mini series on teaching soldering, or mini comics, of course, or something.
We're skirting around the idea behind this podcast that you do, right? Which is the art and science. Oh, I mean, I've been listening to this show for a long time, and this is something that you and Kate have been exploring on the show, right? Like you have like a picks section of the show where you talk about art picks and science picks of like things to explore it together as a family. So I don't know. I thought that this would be a good place to plug this, is like, if this sounds exciting to you, there's like a lot of episodes of this show that you can go avail yourself of right now as well. But like, so
that's
we're not
interesting too. I didn't see that connection explicitly, but it makes sense. I mean, that's
what I thought you were talking about. It's like, yeah, this is your wheelhouse, right? It's like when we say teaching artist, we're not just talking about, okay, well, we know Jerzy does professional development for teaching artists to teach comics in the classroom. Yes, of course, that's the angle I'm going to approach because that's my field of expertise. But Rob and his family have been exploring all sorts of different ways to explore, like, teaching ourselves art, creating activities around art and science, a way to thoughtfully engage with the ongoing leveling up and exploration and experimentation and so on. That's artsciencepunks.fireside.fm. It'll be in the show notes too.
Yeah, thanks. It makes sense. I mean, all of us have things that we're just sort of immersed in that may be reflexive. So I guess that's it. It makes sense that this idea came to mind this year, right? Where, let's see. So if you take that kind of journaling and you turn it into something that I'm sure you've encountered, like WikiHow or like little tutorial blog posts and stuff like that, and YouTube videos all over the place. You want to fix a thing or make a thing, and it's all. But this would be in the concept that I started that started to come to mind would be trying to do bite-sized, approachable, explore, just sharing how you do what you do. It doesn't have to be an hour stream, and just
like 5-minute microcast of something, some activity that you think is cool. I would also throw in there, and this is me, the teaching artist talking, is saying, like, do you have a thought, question, or wondering at the end? Because that, like, I think a part of the idea that you baked that I thought was super exciting was this is explicitly to create, like, networking between other people who are doing teaching arts to, like, trade ideas. So, yeah, like this idea of, like, okay, well, this is something I've done around this concept in my classroom. I wonder how you do it online, right? I wonder how you would do it with 40 kids instead of 10 kids, right? Just like, and this is what they call in the teaching world, like extensions of a lesson plan. You have the lesson plan that's, like, meant for this environment, this number of people, this grade level. Okay, well, how would you do that with teenagers? How would you do that with adults? How would you do that with more kids, fewer kids, different formats? Whether it's, because, like, I've been doing some online classes lately, and there's pros and cons, there's trade-offs always. It's like, I don't get to do one of my favorite things in the world in the classroom is to, like, lean in, like, when I see a kid struggling, and just quietly talk with them, like, okay, what are you trying to do here? And create, like, a little safe bubble around them. Like, it's just you and me talking about this right now. I'm not calling you out in front of anybody else, but I'm giving you my full attention so we can address this problem that you're clearly having right now. You can't do that as easily online, at least not in a spontaneous way, right? So there's going to be, so how would you adapt? Like, and that's the kind of thing we can explore in a daily microcast about teaching the art that we want to teach or that we have taught.
Yeah, that sounds, it sounds like it's like a real creative challenge, right? Because it has the right sort of qualities where it has the potential to go just scope you could get so many features and get trapped in 10 different pits of perfectionism between idea and hitting record, because it has so much possibility. It has so much potential utility and stuff like that, where you're like, well, I want to do a good job, because if people are using this and trying to learn the stuff that I'm thinking of, yeah, that's great to think of. But, just practicing, creating a safe space to practice being a teaching artist and explore potential lessons that don't have to be super honed and whatnot, I think that can be interesting. And be a utility in and of itself. You don't have to arrive at finished products to have value in this exploration. And I have a hunch that there's a lot of folks that may be well, honestly, so many of us being in the situation to need to engage online and teach and present and stuff in virtual meetings far more than maybe the demand for us to do that in other years. Another like useful context for this, where it's like, yeah, teaching artist, we may not, maybe with the emphasis as virtual, right?
Yeah,
Could
actually, yeah,
help.
that's a really good idea, because that's something that you and I have also been like spending a lot of time thinking about. I imagine a lot of artists have thought about this. And another layer to that I would submit is there's a lot of talk around, like I've been in conversations. Let me put it this way: I've been in conversations where the expression "when things get back to normal" it gets thrown out there a lot. And I'm like, okay, well, I hope, but I also hope that we learn from this experience in that it's the virtual, quote unquote, aspect is something that doesn't need to be only rolled out in an emergency. This is something that can augment and amplify, right?
Oh, totally. Think about the institution of Khan Academy, and how, I mean, that is a juggernaut of teaching.
Yep.
And of just so many topics, and with the whole emphasis, I mean, some schools, what was that thing that they talked about? It's the whole inverted classroom thing, where instead of getting the lecture in person, well, you get the lecture from Khan Academy, and then we talk about it and we experience the practical and exploration together.
Yeah, that's yeah. That I think is really interesting. And like how can we hack the game this way, right? So that like, because like, I mean, I think you and I both are sort of bent toward not just wanting to do it like real life, but online, right? Like, it's like, okay, well, that's a way of approaching it, but how can we leverage what online does better? And then we can also leverage what real life does better.
Yeah, absolutely. There are the strengths of the different approaches are they're tools, like, and so why not find ways to use those tools in interesting combinations to solve our different needs we have as well, teachers and learners.
Yep.
So that's, and so maybe the mixing of the themes, I don't know, but I don't know if there's if somehow this cohort were numbered in the thousands of people participating, it might make sense to do some themed emphasis or what have you. But I think planting, shouting and calling out, planting a flag, saying like, this is meant to be across any teaching artist discipline that's out there. Just come along. And we're all experiencing we have a lot of common ground in what we're all experiencing. So
that's another thing that I feel like we need to model that a lot. If this is an opportunity to model that we have a lot of common ground, this would be a time to do that. That would make me really happy.
Yeah. And if someone's you're getting political there, Rob and Jerzy, I'm like, yeah, okay. Common ground, suck it up, because we're in this together. Yeah. And yes, we have to, we need to function together. And I think as speaking of spice, it is one of the coolest things it's like selfishly my experience, when I'm seeing someone do something that it's not necessarily, in my wheelhouse, but all of a sudden I get ideas to take back to my wheelhouse. I'm like, whoa, that's what a neat example. I can totally use, this camera pointing at a table, or this lighting, or this, whatever framing of a problem to fill in the blanks to get creative engagement.
Oh, that is so. I found this terminology when doing the 4 Million Years Later podcast, but I've discovered that there are certain things that like I started saying like, oh, this is like catnip to me. Like, no, this is like heroin to me. This like actually like numbs my whole body and puts me in a state of like such like transformative ecstasy. And one of those things is when we highlight and celebrate the fact that we can all learn from one another all the time. And that like a teachable moment can reveal itself in the most startling place. Like someone who will have like a lot of personal animosity towards teaches me something really valuable. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is real cognitive dissonance. I don't like you, but I feel grateful to you.
Yeah. Yeah, that gets my brain hamster going too, where it's just like, oh yeah, somehow, this is difficult and awesome at the same time.
Yeah. Like that's we talked about this in the recent episode, talking about like curiosity to level up, and in the we did one on, what was the one that was before that? I forget, but we've been on this track of like teaching and exploring and using curiosity to level, like what curiosity looks like. And I told the story of like when I was in a classroom and a student was teaching me something in the other adult in the room, said, "Who's teaching whom?" I'm like, well, no, that's the way it's supposed to go. I don't want to do this if I'm not doing that. So
it's very much interrelated.
Yep.
And the amount of encouragement you're giving by letting someone clarify their own experience that they are beginning to understand by reflecting it back and teaching you, that is also a kind of teaching that you're helping facilitate.
That's some rich stuff.
But it doesn't seem as obvious, right? So hopefully there's a lot of non-obvious ways that we can find to learn from one another that might be served by having a more specific theme, which is, I guess that's the hypothesis behind, like, all right, well, what if we had a more specific theme? It was all about being teaching artists for Art Sound Off. And all of a sudden I'm like, that spice sounds pretty good. Yeah. I might want that.
Yeah.
And the capacity to do it, I'm hesitant, but I'm excited. So yep. Hesitant but excited, 2020.
I love that phrase, let's celebrate the non-obvious. Like, I feel like that's a t-shirt. That's a Lean Into Art t-shirt right there. Celebrate the non-obvious.
You've got some good ones there too. You said we can all learn from one another all the time.
Yeah. You're never off the hook. You're never off the hook. How about that?
Yeah. That's using nurturing as a gotcha.
Yeah. One of my favorite people in the world once said, I was in a classroom with a student, and the student was being like a little bit sassy with me, because this always happens in my classroom. About like 3 weeks in, the kids like decide like, oh, Jerzy's really fun and squishy, and he doesn't punish us for acting out. He finds ways to integrate it, so let's all act out. And I was on this jag about some philosophical element of comics, and student in the back raised his hand. I'm like, yeah, what's up? And he's like, I understood exactly none of that. And then my friend who was in the room with me was like, I guess you didn't try hard enough, did you? And it was such perfectly redirected sass, and it pointed to the fact that, like, yeah, we're playing with a purpose, and like you aren't off the hook. You will get called out if you try to like get off of the purpose, So
yeah, so right, you want to engage with a sense of being what is that quality? It's well, I mean, when you're acting with some kind of understanding of a shared caring and an integrity in the approach. The opposite of it, I can think of the opposite. The opposite is being a bad actor, right? What's the other one? The positive version. I guess being a good actor, helpful.
Yeah.
But you can always, that's the thing with this season of creative challenges. I want to be a thoughtful host if we're going to do this again, and to have it be I guess really imbued with that sense of caring and thoughtfulness, and that we're not just yelling hustle at everybody and record more podcasts, and that's not the point.
That's not the point. No.
Which would be easy to have folks show up and say, oh, look at this, more unpaid work and whatever. It's like, well, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but living's unpaid work, and we got to figure out how to, channel that into our art and develop ourselves, and make things into things, and that's totally not mandatory. No one has to participate in Art Sound Off.
You can change the channel.
Yes.
Okay, so how about we take one more break, about 2 minutes, and then while that 2 minutes is rolling, anybody who's watching live can chime in with their plans for Creative Challenge season, because I've already got some people chiming in on it, and I'd like to read what they're doing. So you have 2 minutes to think of what just a general sense. What are you thinking about doing for your Creative Challenge season, and we'll chew on them for our final thought, because 2 minute practice is next week. We gave ourselves 2 weeks to do it. We'll remind you what it is, but we're not covering it until next week. Okay. So does that sound good?
Sounds excellent.
Okay.
So we have one more break.
One more break. Just talk for a few minutes.
Yes.
God thinks more people make the show possible, and those people are us. We make the show possible, and we make lots of things. We work really hard on them, and we bring all that thinking that we do into this project called Lean Into Art. And the thing that I'm working on that I hope you will check out is actually an online festival in less than 30 days. So probably by the time you're listening to us, it's probably almost upon us, because I know a lot of people listen to the show like a week later. CartoonCrossroadsColumbus.org is the website, and it is a free online festival featuring Jean Luen Yang, Spike Trotman, Ebony Flowers, Xingning Kaur, Diane Newman, Shannon Wright, Fabio Moon, Gabriel Ba, Tara Booth, a lot more than that. And it's October 1st through the 4th. You can see a lot of almost all the programming is up now for you to look at. But it's all going to be streaming, or 90% of it is going to be streaming on the CXC YouTube page, Twitch stream, Facebook page, and then some events are going to be registration only through Zoom webinars. And this is especially in the cases of things that are like adults only. There's going to be some difficult topics covered in some of these talks. Also, comics is visual art. When we start talking about comics that are meant for adults, there's going to be some imagery that you just don't want on a YouTube channel necessarily. So there will be some that are registration only. You can find out more at CartoonCrossroadsColumbus.org. I am doing 2 editions of the Super Comics Challenge game show with Shannon Wright and Steve Hammaker and Matt Holm and Jenny Holm. Matt Holm and Jenny Holm are going to be squaring off against a fan, an 11-year-old fan of their work, and we'll see who wins in the Super Comics Challenge. So once again, that's CartoonCrossroadsColumbus.org, October 1 through 4, 2020. Not all of the content will stay on the YouTube channel. So some of it is going to be streamed, and then it's going to go away. So go tune in there, subscribe to the YouTube channel and to the Twitch feed. Rob, you want to talk about where's your store? Where did I put your store? There's your store.
Yeah, go ahead and maybe switch the video, and I'll pop around in different views here.
Okay.
So if I go to that, here we go. So if you go to robstenzinger.com/store.html, you see a whole bunch of different things that I make. I do workshops, I have some games, and I do some coaching. And the coaching, send me an email if you want to get something going individually, where maybe you're doing a big choice along career path. What's that next creative project that's going to help move you forward? I have a process to help you think through that. Also have a product practice lab to facilitate. That's typically maybe 30 to 90 days. And then also I can help your teams get started with UX as a practice. We've got some workshops that we mentioned already. I want to highlight customizing your next creative challenge. That's, again, if you go to robstenzinger.com/store.html, click on, if you're a Skillshare subscriber, go ahead and click on that link. Or if you want to sign up for Skillshare, I think this link will help you get a couple months for free. And then it's also at Gumroad. If you want to just buy it and have it, download it, then you get to keep it on your own. That's great. So there's those things. Also, I have a game that I recently updated. I've been working on Guitar Fretter for, oh gosh, a long time now. And it's, if you go to guitarfretter.com, that's a quick shortcut to get to its store page. It's available on Windows and Mac and Android, and also iOS. So you can use Guitar Fretter to study 4, 5, 6, or 7 string guitar or bass, and just learn the notes on the fretboard. But instead of memorizing as a sort of look at a chart and then look at the guitar and back and forth and hear the tones and stuff, you get to actually interact with this little digital guitar, and unlock strings and match notes with these little creatures that are coming down. If you miss them, then you lose some health. It's an arcade game. So it's an arcade action puzzle game to learn the notes on a guitar fretboard. So learn more about it at guitarfretter.com and check it out. That's what I have to share with you today.
Sweet. And the last thing we'll point you at is the Lean Into Art Discord. Yes, we have a forum now, and you can interact there. There are public channels, and there are Patreon-only channels. The invite link will be posted in the show notes for this episode and every episode. It's been really fun to get to know all the leaners better there in the Discord. And then, we stream live in the Discord and watch the comments there. So I don't know. I get excited about this platform that is like private social media. I'm beginning to think more and more of social media as like this is like the town hall meeting, where everybody gets to voice their concerns and grievances and say what's on their mind all together, which is a good thing. Having the commons is good. But there's something that's so wonderful about just going home and closing the door. I feel like, okay, I'm with my smaller circle now. Like inner circles can be very, very, very bad, but they're also a natural part of the way we structure our lives. And I think that they are necessary for those of us who, really need to like off gas every once in a while, especially in this particular time. So, yeah, I something about the Lean Into Art Discord just makes me really happy. It's like a nice place where only people who like are parallel in our paths or in our purpose or in our ethos are interacting, right?
Yeah, and if people show up and they violate the concept and they're like, "Hey, leaners are wieners," I'm like, "Nope, leaners aren't wieners. Boot, you're gone." That's because we're going to keep this inclusive and thoughtful. So
That's right. Yes, yeah. It's our house, right?
Mm-hmm.
So. Okay, let's check in with everybody who's been sharing what their plans are for Creative Challenge season. Ashley has been watching live. Did you see Ashley's comment, or do you want me to read it?
I do, yeah. Okay, so yeah, Ashley shares that I think Ashley's pronouns are she, her, but Ashley shares that I'm still doing NaNoWriMo this year, but what's different is I'm starting research this month. Aha, yeah, I have found like working ahead so helpful a little bit for framing creative challenges as opposed to showing up with absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Reading in the genre I'll be writing and listening to broadly relevant topics. Yeah, going to outline in October. Growing out my art mullet. That's great.
Oh, that's a callback to like a decade ago, and it's so good. For those who are new to the show, way back in the old days of art and story, I think it was Jeremy Burley actually coined the term. The art mullet was analysis up front, creativity in the back, and we made like a t-shirt design out of it called the art mullet, where like the word creativity was like the front part of the short hair and the long part of the back, or no, analysis was in the front part and then the creativity was the long part in the back, and it was based on this idea of the analytic eye, which is something I've been talking about for a long time now. It's like, it's like whenever something moves you, whenever something makes you go like or ah or oh. So moving you means like just getting you emotionally fired up, whatever direction, right? It's like stop and ask why. Why did it do that? And that becomes a habit. And then you get into that art mullet. It's like, and also what Ashley's doing is reminding me of something that you've described before, Rob, like this sort of urgent research. Is that what you called it? Where like you just urgent
capture or something. Yeah.
Like you just just let the stuff, open the fire hose of information, let it wash over you and grab whatever you can that like stands out, and then a story will reveal itself from what you grabbed.
It's for some reason the certain game show things are so catchy. They're mimetic, right? Where I mean it's you're describing. It's like I should take my note cards and step into like a cash tornado and just grab note cards and see what happens. But I don't have a cash tornado handy though. So
yeah, this is the thing about that, and I find so lovely is like it is such an undignified thing to do, but at the same time, it's such a fun thing, right? Like there's like nobody, you can't be Alistair Cook and walk into a cash tornado and like be Alistair Cook anymore. Like you gotta turn into, you know, like the supermarket sweep mom who's going like ah and screaming their head off while you're doing it. Something so that like there's something about like that kind of thing that I feel like is profoundly human, and I find it incredibly endearing.
So it's it is a leveler of all of us. Like, so we're all the same in a cash tornado is what I'm hearing. Yes.
Or you're not doing it right, you know?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I guess.
Like if you're going
breaking
like,
the cash tornado contract, if you show up and you're like, fine, I'm ironically dignified in the cash tornado. All right, great.
You short circuited it. Yeah,
good for you.
All right. Joseph Coco is watching on Twitch and said that Becca Hilburn, who was mentioned in our first break, Natto Soup, said she's going to be focusing on fulfilling her Kickstarter for the Creative Challenge season. That's right. Congratulations to Becca. Right.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
That's so great. And yeah, that's no joke, fulfilling a Kickstarter. So I think that would probably be a lot of your extra bandwidth. So I think I think we're just about done. Do you want to like talk real quick about the 2-minute practice that we should be let's not should ourselves, as they say.
Right. Normally we save our judgments for quiet inner circle talk, and we harumph a lot. No, it's 2-minute practice. That's the whole thing where we try to make it cheap to try new things, make it enticing, start a timer, and we share a prompt. Now we're experimenting with going on an every other week rhythm for that. And what we shared as our recent prompt was to use an editor's eye on your web presence. That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is to look at your portfolio or product page and see what stands out that you could trim down and simplify. And you can always go back and listen to the 2-minute practice segment, which is often just like 15-20 minutes ish as a microcast. You can search your favorite podcatcher or podcatcher marketplace for 2-minute practice, or you can go to leanintoart.com/2-minute practice. But then the idea here is if you're playing along, there's always a way to like refine and amplify something about your marketing, right? I know maybe you're an artist who's like super balanced, and every single stage of getting a product into the world is just as energizing as all the other stages. I tend to be way more into the making stuff than the marketing stuff. So I thought, yeah, here we are. This will be a handy thing.
I think so too.
Just take 2 minutes,
and
see what stands out.
Next episode, we're going to talk about what we experienced doing it. And if you want to share your experiences, you can do so in the Lean Into Art Discord. I think we did a podcast, Rob. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerzy.
Yeah.
How the 2-minute practice ends.
Yeah, that is how it ends. I do want to say, if anybody has any thoughts, reflections, or wonderings about what we shared about the Art Sound Off this year, we would love to hear that too. Like, what do you think about our approach because we want to refine it as it hits the ground, and part of that ground contact is what you react to when you hear it. So do reach out and let us know how it sounds, if it's something that you'll be participating in, or if there's any kind of like twists or turns that that you think would make it even more spicy. Okay,
that'd be great. Yeah, send us your recipes for Art Sound Off 2020.
All right. Well, we record this show weekly on Thursdays at noon Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Central. We stream it on Discord and experimenting with streaming it some other places as well. And we'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, I have been Jerzy Drozd of leanintoart.com and Jerzy Drozd on Instagram. Yeah, Jerzy Drozd on Instagram. That's right. Okay.
Right on. And I have been Rob Stenzinger, also of leanintoart.com. And I'm Rob Stenzinger, places like Instagram.
Okay, bye.
Show notes for this episode can be found at leanintoart.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at the user leanintoart, and you can reach us via email at leanintoart@gmail.com. And remember, leaners aren't wieners. Thanks for listening.